ginger bee. Feel the action, not the fear, just like Sam. Are you?
You were talking about a new coming album, an upcoming album. So can you tell me a bit about it? Maybe the music, the instruments, the process, where it's at?
It's being engineered by an artist called Andy Wickett, who's got a big heritage in popular music, and he's very well regarded, very soulful performer and writer. But he's also got his own home studio, house studio, and he's worked very hard engineering this for us over the last year.
We kind of just see ourselves as a live band. We don't really tend to think about going into the studio to record or anything like that. Or we might occasionally say, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice just to record maybe that format, that lineup, that band lineup, or very occasionally." But that tends to be as far as it goes. But we don't consider ourselves a studio band in that sense. Even with the first two albums, that was more to record what we would do live. So that was always the way round. So this is very different territory for us.
Yeah. The idea for this there's another way of making an album, which is you use the studio and you don't pretend or worry about how you're going to do the pieces live. You forget about that. Now, we're already doing 3 of the songs live, so we are actually doing some of the album live, so actually it will come through. But it's a studio album, we're using the studio for effects or for atmosphere, we're doing layers of things. It's sounds, there's all these different sounds with a band framework. It's not hard to listen to, but it is quite adventurous for a band to do it this way. So it harks back to another era where people worked in the studio and created these albums and didn't concern themselves with that, because the album in the studio was itself an instrument. And this sounds very fancy. We haven't got some vast studio and some huge budget, so it's modest, but in a modest way we're evoking that. And that's what, and by the way, I must make this clear, I'm not comparing us to saying we're as great as these people, but the fact is we're reaching back as an idea to the albums that in particular the Beatles made.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Yes, the Beatles is the greatest example. They go from a fabulous beat group who played live all the time, and were a great beat band, through to developing and then ending up living in the studio, not performing live at all.
Yeah. And they were very experimental.
Yes, very, very. But of course they had the budget and they had the time, and they were the Beatles and they're the greatest band the world's ever known. So, but they had that responsibility and they had to come up with that stuff. In a tiny, tiny, modest way, that's what this has been about. And that's the idea of the album. But it's still us. It'll still sound like us.
Are you braving out into areas that you haven't sort of done before? Is it experimental for you? Are you pushing yourself?
What do you think?
I think some of the songs are different. Some of the arrangements of them are different, and whether it be the relationship maybe between some of the passages.
Yes.
That you'll listen to it and you go, oh, what's just happened there, Yeah. So in that sense, yes, there was always an element of that in Sam anyway. But with this album, it's sort of more prominent with some of the songs. So it really is a mixture of some songs where you think, oh yeah, if you know us at all, you'll think, yes, that's Sam. And then there'll be other ones where we've pushed it just a little bit further because of that sort of thing. And if it's all right for me to say, that was really important for Martin this time round because of where this album, where his writing came from. He had a period when he was quite unwell, and he just had to I would come every day and I would watch it, and he'd just have to get these words out of him, this music out of him. And and it's a mixture of just the songs. They seem to reflect just thoughts, feelings, observations. I mean, is that fair for me to say? That he was having maybe at that time. And but put together in song formats. And so, which maybe, I don't know, maybe that also is part of why sometimes some of them are even more quirky than the usual Sam material, you know. But again, hopefully that means they will also be interesting as well.
I'd never really done an album like this before. I knew the material was a bit different. Some of it is very accessible in the sense of you can see where it fits with what we do in terms of a big influence on us. And this is particularly connected with Sandy's singing is classic blues from a long time ago, done in a 21st century way, but in the spirit of the 1930s in particular. Classic blues singers. We're very diverse and we love a lot of stuff, both of us. But one element to me, which is both good and also you've got to watch, is I'm a magpie. I'm interested in almost everything. There's one or two things don't appeal to me, but to be honest, you know, I'm interested in so much, and in a way it's great and it makes life interesting. But in another way, you've got to watch it because you just go. And you know, you've got to have elements. Sometimes you go, right, that's it. And this writing and what we're doing now, this project and all the rest of it, that was like the ultimate thing. And really, aside from, you know, getting married and shorter things, and perhaps the passing away of both my parents are gone. So I mean that is incredibly focused now, and of course terribly difficult. But really, it's up there. You know, I'm not saying it's not as important as those things, but nevertheless, someone like me, a magpie, I've closed it down, and it's been these things are a hell of a struggle for someone like me, because I'm just interested in, you know, I go outside and start looking at birds and go, oh, it's a missel thrush. I can't help it, you know. And then I hear some reggae and I go, God, I remember hearing this when I was so and so, you know. And then someone starts talking about poetry to me, you know.
Some of your writing, therefore, it sort of then it's like memories.
Yes.
And you sort of, some of your lyrics, it's like little memories that are picked out and sort of put together in lyrics, you know, and then you paint pictures in that way. Mine is perhaps more a narrative style usually, whereas yours, it's these little snippets of wonderful things in it, you know. I'm thinking of like Watercress Streams, a song which I think we should do. Okay. I will say.
It's back catalogue.
Yes, it's the back catalogue stuff. But yeah, absolutely, you know. And I just find it really fascinating how you're able to do that.
Well, it's all swirling around. It's all swirling around. I mean, and we never really forget a thing, but the brain just goes back and back and back, you know. And then something will just trigger it, you know. And that's the wonderful thing. I mean, life's a fantastic thing if we try and get these things out of it. Of course, life's terribly hard. And I think we expect to be happy all the time. Happiness is a thing that happens. It's not a state of. It's not a thing you arrive at. You're happy, then you're not happy. You know. But there's lots of other stuff. There's contentment. There's fulfillment. There's satisfaction. You know, it has opened itself out. There are some things which you really get. You know, they're these classic this or classic that. You know, we've got one number which is almost an early soul number. We've got several numbers which are like this jazz blues. You know, you could imagine a band in the 30s with horns playing and Bessie Smith singing, or Memphis Minnie singing. You know, and it's respectfully, but it's not academic. No. We're not impersonating these people. It's the 21st century, you know, but
it's still us, isn't it?
It's still us. It's still us. But the big thing is, people have asked me, one or two people, friends, said, "Well, what's it like?" And I said, "Well, it's varied. You won't be bored. It's not boring. I'm very cautious, but I'll almost guarantee you won't be bored. I cannot, for the life of me, guarantee you'll like it, because that I cannot presume to think whether you like it or not. Yeah. I know some of them will hook people, some of the numbers.
Yeah.
So which songs of what you're playing now live? Oh, I want to make it.
That's the one I referred to, the last one we wrote recently, Sandy and I.
Her Song.
Her Song.
So at the moment we're playing Until, Her Song and
Two-Way Blues.
Two-Way Blues.
Yeah.
And they're off the current album.
Yeah,
we're
they're on
recording.
this album. And they're all very accessible. I think they're. I mean, I love them. I love all of them actually, but I think Her Song, the one we wrote it in a day, and we just sat down and wrote it. Now we hadn't written together in that way for a few years, and we didn't know whether we could do it. And we sat down about 1 o'clock, and about 9 o'clock it was done. And it was quite lively, and
Because it's us.
occasionally some one of us would stomp off to the kitchen and make tea, and then come back and we speak to each other again. And I say, "Why you don't do this? Why don't you do this?
Yes.
Do that?" And it's a great number, and the way she sings it, and I mean. And I said, if Memphis Minnie or Bessie Smith was knocking about, they give her a hug. They go, yeah. Next century, and our music lives. Thank you. Now, obviously I'm biased, obviously, but frankly, with a cold analytical head, it's a great number. And that one, Her Name Comes First. 80% of that song is Sandy. But I've got a bit in there, so I'll come afterwards. I've done a bit, yeah.
How many songs are in this album?
11. There were 10. It won't be hugely long. It'll be long enough. But we knew we needed another one. And so we thought, well, we're just going to do it. And we thought, oh, blimey, can we do it? But we managed it, and that was all right. And we got people in the band, Shelley and Danny. They had some parts written, and they came up with ideas of their own for the accompaniment. And it's these songs I was talking about before that were based on that period when I did that period of writing. And then they were adjusted, and Sandy did her contributions with melodies quite a bit, and with changing certain things.
So when are we to expect this album? When do you think?
We're hoping the spring. These things always take longer. Things happen.
Life happens, doesn't it?
Yes, if I vaguely say the spring,
Does it have a name?
yes, it's named after one of the songs called Signs and Mazes.
And it's actually one of our favourite songs.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's for
We'll wait.
yes.
Yeah. And it tells a story. It's a story song, and it is quite. It's not hard to listen to, but it's a little bit out there. I think there's some people who've seen Sam will go, "Oh, I haven't heard them do this before," But we really love it, and we felt it's possibly one of the most important numbers on the album.
So when was your last album? So how many years have passed between this
A
one?
long time.
Oh, a very long time ago.
11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah. Because as I say, we're a live band, and going back into a recording studio really wasn't in our head,
No, it's been a long time.
to be honest. Yeah, and it's literally only because Martin had this body of work, and it made sense that it needed to be in this format. Really.
A song for every year.
Yes, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. There has been a need to do something just to somehow mark what this momentous event that's happened to all of us,
Yes.
But with Martin, it was that thing that happened to him just before that, and then he started recording during, and then it seemed to take on a different importance. And it was almost as if it was,
Meant to be.
for me, it was like it was almost as if it was meant to come about at this time.
Yes.
It just all seems so coincidental. It was almost as if it was meant to come about at this time, because Martin had written these songs. It was he'd finished the last ones about a year before, was it? Maybe
Yeah.
a few months before.
A few months before.
Bearing in mind, he left it for a bit, and then he went back and looked at them, and then just as he was getting ready to record, everything happened with COVID and such forth. So Yeah, I think sometimes it was just time. It just it somehow all fell together and it made sense, and it's okay.
But it isn't, and I'm not being mean to all the people who've turned out great work during the virus period, because it's a colossal thing in our lives in the world. But it's not about that. It's not about that. The songs aren't about that.
No.
There's enough of those out there.
Yes.
And I'm not knocking those people, because that's sincere stuff and people did it and all the rest of it. And I respect it enormously.
Of course.
But it's not about that.
No.
It's far. You can't say it's bigger than that, because of course it was colossal, but it is not about that. But Sandy's right, it is somehow relevant about hope. There's a lot of positivity in it. There's a couple of numbers. I think there's one number which is this person's in a bad mood, right, and they're a bit fed up, and you get that. But it's positive, but it's thoughtful. But I think it's fair to say there's quite a lot of positivity in it.
Yes.
And I personally, I'm probably not in touch with I'm not in touch with the times, in the sense that we live in very negative times. And whatever, and it's not political. It's not party political, or it doesn't subscribe to any political thing. I'm not interested in doing that musically. It's not what I do, and plenty of people do it, and that's fine. I respect it, But what is neglected, and hopefully it's reflected in this to some extent, and I'm not beating people over the head with it, is positivity. And just simple concepts, like kindness and feeling for each other, which was sort of just getting consigned to the dustbin now, from whatever so-called political standpoint people are in now, whichever one, not just one, whichever one. We're just becoming more and more isolated, all these different groups in our society, and understanding each other less, and respecting each other less, and not allowing for us as human beings, and trying to find things that we've got in common.
Yeah, I think it's just about people just trying to live their lives in whatever sphere they find themselves in, really. I mean, we're not a party political band. We don't do protest songs with a capital P. We may do the odd cover, and we might, put the odd line in here and there. We're not Bob Dylan or anything like that. But I guess again, it's like the one we were talking about, Grace. It's about how people are surviving. Yeah, there's songs about surviving, I would say. And reflecting whatever a person or a situation is happening, usually to a person.
Oh, a human condition.
And yes, human condition.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's more what we're about. So which takes us then back to
the human condition. That's perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
So that takes us back to our concept that we sing about moods and songs from the heart and so on and so forth, and that's our field. We might sing about love, like we might sing about someone who's going through a mental health issue. We might sing about someone who's depressed or whatever, but it's part of that human condition, isn't it? And it's a reflection on what that's within the song, within the body of the song. There are so many people out there, people who people who you sit next to, people you don't know, who have lives which are difficult lives, and that's underestimation. And they somehow manage to put one foot in front of the other every single day. And people who really are able to somehow carry on living in situations where you think, I really don't understand how you're able to do that. And I have met some people in those situations, and the admiration that I have for those people is immense. And it's that thing about surviving and somehow then moving on. And some people can do it, some people can't. Some people have done it, some people are still doing it.
Some people need help.
Some people need help, some people are stuck. You know, it's a vast area, without sort of getting too sort of personal and too much into it, you know. And so, you know, I actually enjoy singing songs about that. So
Yes.
it's about the fight. And I suppose this is where maybe my writing compared to Martin's differs a little bit, because, and I don't do it on purpose, but with my writing I do tend to be a bit more maybe reflective, and it usually is about an individual and maybe something someone's thinking about, and sort of very grounded in reality, some of the lyrics, you know, and I did this and I walked out and I sorted myself out, or I didn't, as the case may be, and this is what's in my head. And that's, and then the conflict that can sometimes happen as well. And I guess that tends to be what my writing's about. And then sometimes I'll just sit and I'll write a little love song, a little ditty about love and how wonderful that is, you know. So that's kind of what my writing is, and sort of the lyrics sorts of are quite, they sort of float around a little bit sometimes, you know. And then sometimes, bang, it's a sentence which is quite a hard sentence and quite grounded sentence, and then you float off again, you know. And that sort of seems to be how I write, or how I've come to write when I write songs and write lyrics.
Sandy, it connects. This is really true, because it connects with her performance. One of the things she does is she connects with women a lot, and women are touched by her performance. And it's not that men aren't, and they love what she does and the power of it and the soul of it, you know. And this is not a mad generalisation, so forgive me. But women, no. But I'm afraid I'll stick to this to a great extent. She reaches women. You know, it's a woman's voice.
I work hard, everyday commendations. I work and I smile. I spend time on all the people I see.
So that was the body of work, and then it had to be built piece by piece. But you have to watch it, you know. We're either too narrow or we could be too wide. Or we've got to somehow, there are times where we've just got to, right, this is it, we've got to do it.
You know, sometimes when something has to be done, it has to be done.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times, so.
Yeah.
Well, I say my day is fine. Something I don't understand when I feel my life isn't mine. Much come has never